Mr. Chair, members of the committee. First, my name is Trent Doolittle. I am the District 1 engineer. We are responsible for the southwest part of the state. Mr. Chair, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you hearing that?
No feedback.
Okay, maybe it's just on my end. So I'll continue. We cover the southwest part of the state. We have 6 full counties listed there at the top, 1 partial county, which is Ketron County. Some of the major roads that we have in our district, I-10, all of I-10, 164 miles falls within our district, and then we have 174 miles of I-25 to just north of Socorro, where we tie in with District 3. And then some of our other major routes are US 70, headed toward Alamogordo, US 180 between Silver City and Deming. And then I'll touch a little bit on New Mexico 136, which is Pete Domenici Highway from the Santa Teresa Port of Entry. In the bottom right-hand page of page 1, you'll see our fiscal year 21 budget. Operating budget's about $22.5 million. You'll see our ongoing construction contracts is $191 million. I'll touch on some of those projects a little bit later in my presentation, but just so you know, we usually have about a $30 million STIP budget. But because of closeout, freight money, those kinds of things, we're up closer to the 200 million this year. Our contract maintenance is 5.3. What that is the money that we pay contractors to do routine maintenance, pavement preservations, some bridge repair, those types of things. Field supplies, 5.4. That's the money we utilize internally with our forces to buy materials, to do work, pothole patching, salt and cinders, those types of materials. Siding and striping, 1.3. Rest areas, 60,000 for improvements, and then our normal maintenance that we pay Tresco to do routine cleanup is 2.2. Then down below, you see our positions that we have in our district. Currently at a 15.4% vacancy rate, which is high for us. We're usually down a little bit lower than 10, but things have slowed down a little bit while we work with SPO in these COVID times to save a little bit of money and go through some additional justification, but we're actively pursuing filling all of our positions. On page 2, I wanted to talk a little bit about our ongoing construction projects. I'll just highlight a few of these. The big one that we've got right now is I-25 and University. That's here in Las Cruces. We have a lot of accidents with the students getting on and off the interstate, so we're completely reconfiguring that intersection, that interchange. That's a $33.3 million project. The other ones that I wanted to touch on briefly is we're doing some ADA and some multi-use path. The second one is on New Mexico 26, ADA and Hatch. Very good for the community, allows alternative modes of transportation to get to and from safely. And then the multi-use path in Santa Clara is very important to that community. They've been after us for a while. So I'm happy that we're working with them to get that one built. And then the other one I wanted to touch on, earlier Representative Martinez asked about the bridges on 187 near Array. So you'll see there that we're currently constructing those 2 bridges. These were the 2, Mr. Chair, that we had load restricted. So the plants that were in the area had to take some detours because they were timber structures that just couldn't handle the weight. So we are currently actively replacing those 2 bridges there. And then later on, I'll talk about the other 2 in the same area that we're replacing, but this will at least allow them to have direct access to I-25. I want to touch real briefly, Mr. Chair, on your House bill money. I can't thank you all enough for the money that you provide to us. The projects that you see there are projects that very reasonably would not get built without the additional funding that you provide us. I won't go through all of those. But one that I do want to touch on specifically, or 2 of them, are the last 2. The I-10 New Mexico 404 and then the New Mexico 404 corridor. If you'll scroll back up for me, please. There you go. The 404 corridor is the one that goes over the Anthony Gap from I-10 to Chaparral and then south to El Paso. It is a heavily traveled freight corridor, especially now that El Paso is doing a lot of work on I-10. Their plan is to completely reconstruct the I-10 corridor in town over the next 10 years. And so we've been working with them to plan and develop the Borderland Expressway, which ties directly into 404. So we're in a 3-phase process. I-10 404 actually just bid 2 weeks ago. So we're in the process of awarding the contract for that one. The New Mexico 404 widening project is scheduled to let next year. That will be a 4-lane facility with positive separation, which means we'll have concrete wall barrier along the entire corridor, eliminating the head-on collisions and the fatalities that we have along that corridor, even given the increased trucking capacity that we have through there. So we're really excited about those two projects. I will tell you that there is absolutely no way that we could have fully funded all 3 phases without your help with that House bill money. About $18 million of what you've given us is going directly to that corridor, so we appreciate it. The next spreadsheet, that House Bill 289 million, you'll see there, those are just contract maintenance projects. All of those have been completed, just some routine maintenance that we needed to do. The last one that I wanted to touch on, this is House bill money that we received this past fiscal year, or this past legislative session. We're doing the pavement on I-25 just south of Socorro, headed towards TRC. Mr. Chair, you'll be traveling that section of road on your way home today. It is falling apart very literally in front of our face. So we're going to put all 20 million that we received from that project to do a deep mill and inlay to replace that pavement. That one's scheduled to bid this winter. So again, we appreciate it because we were just going to do just a quick Band-Aid on it, but with this additional funding, we're able to do a 6-inch mill and inlay rather than a 3. So again, we appreciate it. The next spreadsheet that you see there is our District 1 equipment request for this year. There's quite a bit of heavy equipment on there, but if you'll notice, we're also buying some smaller vehicles. Past several years, we haven't been able to do that. So we're buying vehicles for our construction inspectors. Our bridge inspection program uses the Suburban and the SUV to carry their ladders. The Suburban was actually in an accident and they totaled it, so we're replacing that equipment. But this year's request is about $2 million. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, or this page 2, you'll see the rest areas. I'm happy to say that all of our rest areas are currently ADA and environmentally compliant. We've been working very hard to work with Tresco to meet that criteria, but they're old. We've had problems with septic systems, pumps, wells, those kinds of things. So you'll see here that we're doing some of that repair, upgrading the lighting to LED so that our costs are a little bit lower. But this is what we're planning on spending this year to do improvements to our rest areas. On page 3, Mr. Chair, you'll see our projects that are currently in engineering and development. A few that I wanted to touch on is we've got the hatch reconstruction project. That's the second one down on the left, the I-25 milepost 34 to 40 for $26.5 million. That project is going to replace all of that bad subgrade that we have in there. Very important to us because we spend a lot of time and maintenance money just keeping it where it's safe to drive on. So that one's exciting for us. Earlier in the presentations, there was some discussion about the GRIP program. If you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about the 5th or 6th one down, the capacity safety study on US 180. We're going to study that in that corridor between Deming and Santa Clara on 180 to determine whether it truly needs 4 lanes, whether it needs alternating passing lanes, but that will address the last unfunded GRIP project. Once we get the study finished, then we can start working towards getting into our STIP and funding it for construction. Mr. Chair and Representative Martinez, the one right below that on New Mexico 187, that's to replace the other 2 timber structures. Those 2 right now are not load restricted, but they are timber structures that we need to address. So we're designing those. So once we get that project bid, all 4 of those timber structures along the 187 corridor to I-10 will be replaced. And then the last one I wanted to touch on very briefly is the bridge replacement on New Mexico 152. That's that $5.5 million. It's in a development phase, but I just wanted to share with you the process that we're using. It's a federal lands project where we coordinate with Federal Highway, federal lands, and they actually fund, design, and construct that project, even though it's on our roadway. So we have 2 projects like that right now. The other one is accessing Catwalk up in the Gila. So that's an opportunity for us to build some secondary projects that ultimately wouldn't probably ever get replaced. It's not our money. We are highly involved in the design and the oversight, but it's a program that we as an agency use periodically that's very beneficial to us. But there's quite a few other projects in that. If you have any questions, I can certainly take those at the end. The last I wanted to touch briefly on is our needs. You saw in Tammy Haas's presentation that we as a district have the highest percentage of interstates meeting poor condition. And you can see it here. Our top 5 priorities are interstate projects. And these are fairly substantial mill and inlays. I will say all of these projects are currently designed and ready to go. It's just a matter of finding funding, which we received in the past for some of these similar projects. So, anything that we can do to help out, I would appreciate it. But our priority is taking care of the interstate at this time. With that, Mr. Chair, that's all I had for my presentation. And I can stand for any questions, or we can take them at the end once all the districts are finished.
Rather than keep you online, if we could hold the questions to very short, we'll do it after each district speaks. So Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Doolittle. I want to thank you for what you've done within the district. We had some issues on 180. You took care of them. The one question I probably missed it somewhere is Thorpe Road in the village of Doñana. Is that project going to proceed shortly, or what's the status on that one?
Mr. Chair, Representative, so I failed to mention that one. One of the projects that we currently have in the engineering and development stage is we are studying I-25 from the Lowman interchange to Doñana exit. And then we're studying Thorpe from Doñana into town by the post office. That project, the RFP was just awarded. We just had our kickoff meeting. But it's a little more complicated than just adding some sidewalks because of the off-ramp at Doñana. So we are moving forward with the project, but we need to complete the capacity study first. We are working with Doñana County so that we're tying into their any erosion and sidewalk improvements they're doing. But we need to complete the project first to determine where that that drainage needs to go, what we need to do at the interchange itself, but we are moving forward with the study itself.
Thank you so much, because that's one of the questions I get calls on frequently from the folks in the village. They've heard that there's going to be a project, but at what point will you guys work on it? But anyway, certainly thank you for what you're doing. I know the farmers and the transporters down in the Array area are really glad and happy that those bridges are being taken care of. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional questions? Trent, are you kept in the loop with the testing going on with the self-driving 18-wheelers? I know the test is taking place on I-10 on the Arizona side, but I'm starting to hear that they will be coming through New Mexico and Texas in 2021. So are you notified of any upgrades that are going to be necessary along the way?
Mr. Chair, you're correct. And actually, we have been working with our freight coordinator, who is Paul Siddig, with our planning section at the general office. We have actually had a few of the autonomous trucks travel into New Mexico, into El Paso, just to see how they're working. So we've actually been part of the testing. It wasn't very open about those tests. The only thing that they were asking us to do is they need 6-inch stripe, which we have on all of our interstates. But at this point, all of the requests for those vehicles, we are ready to go.
Okay, I guess as a side note, from what little I know about it, that once they are self-driving without I guess they have a driver right there to monitor that action, But once that technology is perfected, if all things are equal, you probably will need a lot fewer drivers from that standpoint, and you'll probably need fewer trucks because you won't have to worry about the layover requirement with the drivers. So interesting changes will be taking place with the technologies. Want to thank you for the efforts, especially on I-10. The contractor there's a couple of contractors moved expeditiously. I-10 doesn't have the truck traffic that 40 has, but it's got a ton of truck traffic right now on that. And so for the contractors, no injuries that I was aware of, certainly is to be commended, but they moved quickly and expeditiously, and appreciate your efforts through the local communities also on the resurfacing. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just very briefly, you talked about the freight corridor. So I and Paul Sittig and Charles Rimke with our IT section are part of an I-10 freight coalition between Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California. So we're talking about rest areas. We're talking about keeping track of available parking along the corridor. We meet every 2 weeks. So we are talking heavily about the trucks that are traveling on I-10, specifically between Long Beach and the Gulf of Mexico. So if there's anything that comes up that's relative to the autonomous vehicles or something that will impact us directly, I'll be sure to keep you all in the loop.
Okay. Well, we know the local traffic's down because they canceled the duck races this year. With that being said, it makes your job a little easier, but we appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. Do you know how much your IT budget was, Mr. Doolittle? I'm adding up the IT budgets for all the districts, and yours doesn't break that out.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I don't recall right offhand. I will do some checking and see if I can get that to you before the district engineers are finished with their presentation.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Let's move on to District 2, Tim Parker. Is District 2 on?
Yes, he is on. Let me see if I can get him to unmute. Hey, Tim, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you, Tim.
Are you on? We can't hear you.
He is on, and it looks like his mute button is undone, but we can't hear him. Mr. Chairman,
Picking it up?
Yeah, okay, we can hear you now, Tim.
It shows me as unmuted. Is that picking it up?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Go ahead.
Is that picking it up?
Yeah.
Yes, Tim, go ahead. Tim, you can go now.
Test, test, test. Oh, good. Okay. So you can hear me. Thank you. I'm Tim Parker. I'm your District 2 engineer for Southeastern New Mexico. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It all worked up until that moment. For serving 11 counties, Mescalero Apache Tribe, 2 Air Force bases, Holloman and Cannon, as well as Fort Bliss on US Highway 54 heading towards El Paso. And so altogether, if you look at the district, there's about 7,750 lane miles, which is about a quarter of our state's roadway network. My commissioner is Bruce Ellis. He resides in Alto, New Mexico. And as we scroll down to the bottom right of the first page, we talk about our budget, and current operating budget's about $24.3 million. But when we turn this profile in, it's now up to about $219 million in ongoing construction projects, and we're getting ready to let many millions more over the next several months. And so things are very dynamic here in southeastern New Mexico with that. But as well, we try to maintain what we've got. And so our contractual maintenance through our maintenance agreements, about $6 million, field supplies, salt, cinders, oil, things that would go back to the pavement and help support our maintenance operations. Also about $6 million. Signing and striping. It's going to continue to be an issue, especially with the autonomous vehicles increasing. Even besides the semis, a lot more people are driving level 1 autonomous vehicles, which means they have lane keep assist, which reads the signs and reads the stripe. And you have to have pretty good stripe for many of the new vehicles. Toyotas, Hondas all have a lane keep assist option. And so we have to keep good striping, good reflectivity out there. We've also been making investments in our rest areas. For the last 16 months, the district has been working with an architect out of Albuquerque to come up with a new design for our Mesa rest area about 36 miles north of Roswell. And so we've been working on that, hopefully be able to go to construction in the next year. And that price will be about $1.5 million, depending on how it turns out. With 336 full-time positions, the majority of our folks are working out in the field, but we currently have somewhere between 30 and 35 of our office staff who are teleworking. And so our main office complex is pretty dead most of the time, but our regional, our 16 maintenance patrols, our 6 project offices are still working normally, except with social distancing and masks. If you go to the next page, and on the top, this is not inclusive. This is just some ideas on some of the projects we have in our STIP. And District 2 inspects 539 bridges, of which 443 actually belong to us, meaning we maintain them. So about 96 bridges we inspect for the local entities. Part of the services that we provide and invest in the local environment is, you never want to see a bridge fall down or have a major dramatic failure. And so we inspect most of the locals' bridges in southeastern New Mexico with our 2-person district staff, as well as support from New Mexico State and our general office. And so you can see always a big investment in bridge projects in the STIP, local government investments, always trying to spread regional equity as we can, especially with so much focus on Lee and Eddy County. There's many other counties that need the love as well. And so we're trying to always maintain that perspective and spread it around. And then as we scroll down to the middle of the page, we see a variety of other projects that are coming up, including Lovington. One of the questions I think Representative Gallegos had asked earlier was about Lovington Main Street. And when we got to 90%, there was a public meeting and some community issues with the design, and working with Representative Gallegos, we were able to make the adjustments, even though we were at 90%, which is a really difficult situation. And one of the questions that you naturally ask is, well, how did that increase the cost? And it didn't really increase the cost at all related to the design changes, but what affected both designs is the impacts of utilities. And so, that project 2 or 3 years ago was $19 million. Today it's $23 million, but that's a reimbursable, a lot of that from the community of Lovington due to utilities, their utilities, some New Mexico gas utilities. And so, sometimes you see a project and a project value that says X number of $1 million, but there's other form factors involved in that. And so we're actually going to be reimbursed for some of these items, especially as it pertains to utilities, because in southeastern New Mexico, you think in a rural setting, utilities can't impact a project. Let me tell you, they sure can. And so we take a look at some other projects that because of the investment of the legislature in southeastern New Mexico and what we're doing here, we've been able to recapture some ground. Our roads were deteriorating faster. Even though we have no interstates, we have the most 4-lane miles. And so we do have maintenance issues aplenty, but we've been able to do a lot of investments in our contractual maintenance. We've been able to, for example, on the money that have been bestowed to us, put a lot of into the 285. You know, at one point it was, if you got in an accident on 285 south of Loving, New Mexico, south of Carlsbad, you were 3.25 times more likely to die if you were in any type of an accident south of there. We turned it into a safety corridor, a double fine zone, which has shown some result. As well, the 4-phase project, it's about $145 million investment there from the state line of Texas to Loving, New Mexico. And the first 2 phases have already started. It's the first 7 miles plus a bridge. And then the next 2 phases will around this time next year, we have approximately 90 right-of-way takes that we have to acquire, especially as we get into Loving itself, to make room for the 3- and 4-lane sections that are going to go in there for the roadway. So it takes a little longer when you get involved in right-of-way and utility relocates in a municipality. So that's where some of that heavy lifting is, and that's why those 2 phases will towards the end of next year. So basically the entire 285 corridor will be under construction by the end of calendar year next year or shortly thereafter. And so a lot of emphasis on 285. As we scroll down, we see work in Clovis, basically US 70 between Clovis and Portales. Because of some of the investment money y'all provided, we were able to pave between Portales and Clovis. Something both counties, both communities really desperately wanted for many years. And so over time, we were able to work with many of the elected officials in the area to get that to be a priority. And so we appreciate being able to serve in that capacity. Signing and striping. US 54 is our big freight corridor besides 285. And so you will always see, and there have been for the last 10 years and for the next 10 years, there will be projects on US 54, which takes product from Mexico and takes it up through Kansas City, the 54 corridor. If we go to the next page, we go in and talk about some of our equipment needs, and very fortunate to be able to start catching up on some of our equipment needs. Many times the vehicle meets 2 of the 3 replacement criteria, and we've been able to kind of fix that issue and get the patrols, our maintenance patrols, what they need to do their job. Brooms, other heavier equipment, because think about it, from Roswell, it's 3+ hours to Jal and 2.5 maybe to Corona. So from one end of our district to the other, it could be 6 hours. And if you needed a piece of equipment quickly, it could take a little while to get there. And so we try to regionally disperse some of our more used equipment to meet needs as they arise. If you could go down towards the bottom of that page, please. Once again, $20 million we were provided as part of a disbursement, and we're putting that into mills and inlays, 54, US 82, working on fully plumbing up a project on New Mexico 18. Basically everything between Lovington and Jal is starting to show its wear. And so we're planning 3 to 4 years out and how we're going to address that while we're concurrently dealing with all the issues on 128, 285, and US 82. Immediate needs, passing lanes to Tatum. It's Chaves County, Lee County, a top priority to try and address the issue that we have between Tatum and Roswell. US 60, there's parts of that corridor that need the same treatment as Roswell to Tatum. They need passing lanes there from Clovis to Vaughn to Fort Sumner. And so we're working and planning and working on studies, trying to get a study. I've got a study going right now between Roswell and Tatum to assess where the passing lanes are going to go. We're working on acquiring funding to do the same between Clovis, Fort Sumner, and Vaughn. So very important. As well, New Mexico 2, immediate need, because it's one of those projects that keeps getting pushed back in our STIP. other projects there towards the bottom of the page, but to wrap it up, one of Representative Gallegos's questions involved New Mexico 176. And we had a bid protest with some of the contractors, which happens every now and then. And so the question was asked, how much did the price go up? And so my response is, how much did the price go down? And so both of the engineers' estimates for both of the like projects was $16.1 million. When it originally bid and let, it was $19.2 million, was the apparent low bidder prior to pre-qualification. We have a pre-qualification system that we use. And then when we rebid that job, it came in at 18.1. So $1 million plus savings by rebidding it, because there were some issues with utilities once again, and we didn't want the contractor to get in there and have an immediate issue with utilities. And so we had to address that through some plan adjustments. So with that, that's really all I have. Thank you all for your time and your patience with my technology, and I stand for any questions.
Representative Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Parker, for your presentation. On District 2 Special Appropriations, the $20 million, is that 20 money or 21 budget money?
Mr. Chairman and Representative, the 20 million is 20 money. So it was originally passed in January of 2020. We were originally awarded $180 million of general fund. Then through the special session, that was reduced to 135 million. We gave each district 20 million, which adds up to 120. And then we kept 15 million with the Office of the Secretary for any overruns or other projects that we needed to do. So that entire 135 or very close to it. Our goal is to spend that by next September 30th. So that was kind of what we discussed with LFC at the time is let's not take that 180 million back and put it in the general fund. Let us keep it, but what we'll do is we'll put it out into the economy within the next 12 months, so it'll help support the general fund. So all the district engineers have plans to spend that money by next September.
That's outstanding. It's good to have the money go to work instantly. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your response. On the first item under the District 2 Special Appropriation, the US 70 mile marker 264 to 275, where is that?
It's the Ruidoso Downs area, Representative.
Okay, so that was funding into Lincoln County area. At one point, we had discussed the need between Alamogordo and Holloman on Highway 70, and I thought it might be some of that location. Is that still on your radar as far as a need in District 2?
From a pavement asset management perspective, it's not quite there yet from going compared to all the other priorities and needs that we have. Because as you remember, it took many years for us to get that paved between Portales and Clovis. This is going to be a similar situation because there's certain areas that are starting to show their age, but I just drove it the other day and the majority of it is still pretty reasonable compared to some of the other issues we're getting ready to have on US 54 south of Alamogordo. So it's on the list, but it's not in the top 5 or 10. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I just, I'm trying to, when I get questions, I want to be able to understand, where we are. So, and I thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gallegos.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, and team, I appreciate you coming for us, giving us some detail, and I thank you for the answers earlier. I really enjoyed working with you on a lot of the projects. I did just have a couple of questions, Mr. Parker, is on the prequel, and I really like that you saved $1 million, and I just want to help you spend that later, but that'll be offline. But on the prequel, do we give any preference to local contractors, state contractors?
Unless the secretary wants to take that, I'm glad to answer it.
Go ahead, Tim.
Sure. And so our pre-qual, for many years, we would, in a low bid environment, we would have claims, claim to profit situations. I dealt with that in Albuquerque several times as district engineer up there and had some of that down here. But in that process, during that time, as claims were increasing, settlements were increasing, we had to do something. And so with coordination with the Federal Highway Administration, we worked with them to do a pilot project, which is the nation's first to do something like this, and basically rate the contractors on their performance, on their previous year's performance. And Justin Gibson, the District 3 engineer, helped write some of this, so he can chime in anytime if I say this incorrectly. But basically, we rate them on their previous year's performance, and it provides them a score. And, are they on time? Are they on budget? Were there safety issues? Many criteria, but ultimately it's a performance-based criteria that is not subjective. It's not my opinion. It's what they do in the field. It's how they perform and represent the New Mexico tax dollars the best. And so grading these folks on their pre-qual score, which goes into their next year's bids. And so if someone bid, let's say $1, but their pre-qual score wasn't so good, maybe they're now $1.25 and their closest competitor is now 95 cents. And so what it is, it's a really fair approach to base it on their performance instead of just having a traditional low bid. And so far, my understanding is it's gone really well. And in fact, if we look at least in District 2, the claims, the issues, the drama we would have as part of the construction process has truly been lessened. There's a lot of still growth. We work with ACNM and the contracting community. We take their opinions to heart and we work with them. But ultimately, representing the state of New Mexico, I think it's been a really good thing for us and our contracting community.
Mr. Chairman and Tim, I appreciate that. And in that, does the bonding capacity add into that? I like the way you're doing that, but do we look at their bonding capacity on statewide projects to see if they can fulfill it?
Justin can answer that or someone else. I don't have direct knowledge of that the bonding capacity plays a role.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, I'll have Justin. I don't believe that's the case with bonding capacity. I think we always look at that, but I think Justin, when he gets on, can answer that. He's really been the lead engineer when it comes to negotiating and handling the pre-qual process, so we'll let him answer that when he comes on board.
Thanks, sir, Mr. Chairman. My only concern there is if we get a job that's multifaceted, they may have 3 or 4 areas around the state, and I'm just wondering if they're capable of protecting us as a state on our roadways. So, Mr. Chairman, my last question for Mr. Parker is, do you know where we are on the JAL bypass? Is that still progressing?
That's a great question and a contentious question all in one package, because it's I think it's important, especially as we go through and address the infrastructure on 128 and what we will be doing on New Mexico 18. It's another $100 to $200 million project based on the initial study that I've seen. And right now we've already got $300 million in needs between the 31 and 128 design build, which we're getting ready to have a kickoff here pretty soon. So on the priority scale of things, it's not in the highest priority, although we are going to be working with JAL to work and maybe even take over in a temporary fashion, kind of like what we're doing with Hobbs. We're probably going to assume maintenance and care of their bypass to upgrade it a little bit for a whip route, because while 128 is under construction, there could be significant delays on waste isolation pilot plant shipments. And so we're looking at for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years, taking over the Hobbs bypass. That's still in negotiations and not firmed up, but there are options to help assist JAL by working with a couple of their local streets, the ones that are further out, dress them up in an appropriate fashion so that there could be, for all intent and purposes, a bypass that's not the bypass that they exactly want, $200 million, but it's something that we can turn over to them after 3 or 4 years that will serve them well. And so the big bypass, they're working on that. The city, it's a city lead project. I was part of their most recent public meeting. Seemed to go well. Senator Fulfer, not so excited in some regards, depending on how the geometry lays out. But, that's, my job is execution and delivery of these projects and for y'all to work it out.
And Tim, I appreciate that. I did not make that meeting, but I know it's going to be important. And I just wanted my last comment. I want to thank you for the response and quick response the other day when I sent you pictures. As you know, those heavy 18-wheelers, when they stop, they push that asphalt and create divots for everyone else. So I just want to thank you and your staff for all you do for us in Southeast. And with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Additional questions? How much in the loop are you on the brine well progress or lack of progress?
I'm very much in the loop, but the secretary might have more current information.
Hope he has a cheaper price.
I wish I did, Mr. Chairman, but I can't say I do.
When will that be completed? I mean, where are we on that?
Mr. Chairman, what my progress or my knowledge of it is right now is that, as you're probably aware, with the sonar that they've done over the last several months, they found additional space that they need to fill. And a lot of that goes under 285. And so they're looking at anywhere from maybe as much as or even more than $10 million. And so right now, I don't know that there's a funding source for that. And so until they identify the funding, I'm not sure that they know exactly when that'll be complete. But they did identify through sonar that the gap is bigger than what they originally thought it was. And so there will need to be some more money put into that if they want to completely fill everything up.
They really didn't have to do the sonar stuff. They could have talked to Senator Engel. He said that was going to happen when on the front end of the door when we were starting to address this issue. I say that tongue in cheek, and I was hoping he was wrong, but it sounds to me like Senator Engel was absolutely right. All right, we're ready to move on. District 3, is Mr. Gibson on?
Yes. Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, thank you. I'll be going over the District 3 State of the State report, and just to kind of summarize it, there's been a few personnel changes since the last report. I'd like to introduce by her picture here, this is Miss Helma Chinaweth. She's our new District 3 Commissioner. And then below, you'll see the picture that me as the new District Engineer. And for everybody that's familiar with District 3, we cover the 16 regional areas, 16 communities, and 8 tribal governments. A lot of the major emphasis in our area is the interstate within the Albuquerque metropolitan area. We also have state routes and U.S. routes that are in the Central Valley and also on the east side, East Mountains outside Albuquerque. Today, I'll be going over the FY21 budget. Our current budget responsibility, our operating budget is at $16 million. Our current construction contracts is $116 million. And with that, that's kind of a blend of construction contracts. The current ongoing contracts that we have right now is in the neighborhood of about $77 to $80 million. Our current contract maintenance is $7.9 million. And that's the budget that we set up every year, or that we are allocated, that's outside of the additional maintenance monies that we've been able to receive from general appropriations from the legislature, which we're real appreciative for. And what supplements that as well is our field supplies budget at $2.8 million. And then we have our signing and striping budget at $1.1 million. And both of those efforts are also used in conjunction with the money that we were able to receive from the legislature. And then as you look little further down, our IT budget is right about 268,000 a year. And kind of moving out of the budget responsibility and into the employee breakdown shows that we have 205 employees. Right now we have a total of 33 vacancies. We're about 16% vacancy. We are been fortunate to be a part of the rapid hire for, I think, 5 employees. We've been working vigorously to get those interviewed and moving within the October, November timeframe. That will help us substantially, and we've also are looking forward to a few FTEs that were appropriated by the legislature that'll be going into our local government area and also into our maintenance area that also supports our maintenance staff having a ladder as they progress from being maintainers into supervisory staff, including AMSs. So we'll go ahead and move on to the second page. I'll start off first with looking at the ongoing construction projects. We have a blend of bridge projects and roadway projects. Briefly, the New Mexico 14 project is a 2-mile project that completes the Cedar Crest to Zuzax corridor for 6 miles. We have the Zuzax interchange. That's the Zuzax bridge over I-40 and also a box culvert that's considered a bridge that are being replaced at $8 million. That was an original 1960s construction, so that we're really fortunate to be having that replaced. We have 2 projects on New Mexico 6. Both of them are bridge projects. One is west of town, and it is the 27-mile marker. And it's the bridge replacement of the deck over BNSF's railway. And then there in town, we have $18.5 million project, which is the replacement of the bridge over the Rio Grande, which I'm sure many of you all have seen. Also, the biggest project we have ongoing right now is the US 550 project. It's about the 3-mile project. It goes through Bernalillo, the town of Bernalillo, at 313 and extends west out to Rio Rancho at 528. We have a project that's just nearly $1 million that is ITS that supports deploying infrastructure of ITS signs here in the Albuquerque metro area. And then our last project that is ongoing, as we're just wrapping it up as of this week, is I-25 from milepost 191 to 195. So I'm sure a few of you traveling to Santa Fe, going back south, will be able to see that project. It's just been wrapped up. Moving further along, in the laws of 2019, there were 4 projects that were allocated to the tune of $68 million. The update there shows kind of the progress that all those projects are making. Most of them are in the planning phases or at some sort of holding pattern for right now based on the current state of the economy. Moving lower into the $89-100 million projects, I'm happy to report that we've completed 9 of those projects, and we're looking at the execution and the completing the rest of those projects by June 2021, and that'll kind of round out the $16.6 million that the district had received and this mostly covers contract maintenance. One of them that's big that we're starting right now is the I-40, I-25 interchange. It's the 3rd line down. Will be a mail-in inlay of the system interchange with I-40, I-25. We anticipate starting by the end of this month, and hopefully we'll have favorable weather where we can complete that over the winter and be done by June of 2021. Moving on to the laws of 2020, the Chapter 83. This is our current upcoming projects. We're currently trying to get these projects scheduled. This would be the allotment for the $20 million that the district received. It's heavily focused on mill and inlay and HMA type projects. One of the ones kind of in the center of the page is kind of stabilizing the Algodones area on I-25. There's also a few New Mexico routes that are going to be addressed. Specifically, New Mexico 45 is the Coors route that's in Albuquerque. The department's undertaken fixing or repairing and maintaining tours south of I-40 down to where it becomes 2 lanes and meets I-25. The bottom tab that you'll see is laws of chapter 73 from laws of 2018. This is 7.3 million. I'm happy to report that this project is complete. It was I-25 widening that was south of the Rio Bravo project. So now there is a 3-lane interstate on I-25 going south out of Albuquerque all the way to just north of the Isleta Pueblo reservation, or at the Broadway interchange with New Mexico 47. And so that was completed in June of this year. If we'll move on to the last page. This, in no specific format, does list the projects that are in engineering and development stage for from 2021 out to 2024. The 528 project specifically brought up by members of the committee, the New Mexico 528, it does show that that will be between Ridgecrest and Northern, and that will be extended from where the southern end of that project had occurred, I believe, between 2016 and 2018. Below that, it shows the district's needs for unfunded or underfunded projects. A lot of things, probably when we get, if there's questions, there's a lot of areas, specifically the Avenida Cesar Chavez interchange is identified as a project, but we are identifying that it is underfunded and needs to be funded. And if you look at it, you'll see that it's heavily weighted towards interstate projects of I-25 and I-40. One of the things that we're seeing with projects here in the Albuquerque area is a lot of the original construction from 1960 through 1990. So a lot of the bridges that are 1960 construction are reaching the near end of their service life. So it'll be a challenge as we try to fund these projects into the future, but I'm sure that the committee's very well aware of that. Also below that, it shows the District 3 equipment. This is actually the equipment that is ordered. We do keep a running total of our equipment needs that I can provide that would supplement this, that is for future needs. These are the pieces of equipment that were ordered between the 2020-2021 fiscal years. And for that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions from committee members?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. It's good to meet you. I have one question that's on page 2, the new, laws of 2019, chapter 271. On New Mexico 347 Paseo del Volcan, the right-of-way acquisition, it says you've executed an agreement and that the acquisition is in progress. Is there still more additional right-of-way that needs to be acquired? And if so, how much would the estimated cost of that be?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, yes, I believe that there is still additional. This $3 million was set aside or requested to start the process of preservation of right-of-way. But I'd be happy, I don't have the exact number, but I'd be happy to get back to you with that information.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Gibson, thank you. I would really appreciate that. That's it.
Sure.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Gibson. I only have one concern, which is on Interstate 40 on the eastbound side and mile marker 139. That highway is falling apart right there, and it's been in that condition for a couple of years now. And it's right now at this point it's getting really bad, and I'm getting a lot of complaints about it. And I see on your projects that you have listed here, it's not on this, none of these pages. Do you have a radar on this thing to take care of this issue?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, yes, I appreciate that question. I was corresponding with some members. We did identify, because I think at first it had come up that it was in District 6. This project is in District 3. Right now, what we have completed is that we had done a crack seal of that area from about the 132 to 139. Currently, we have mill and inlay that we're trying to do from 143 to 148. It was, unfortunately, this area seems to be deteriorating faster than what we had anticipated. Based on the comments of this meeting, it is going to be something that we're going to look at adding to our list of unfunded projects and evaluate the area to see how it can be addressed as contract maintenance to keep that in a status of at least fair repair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gibson, because that Interstate 40, we have a lot of truck traffic, as you well know, and somebody's going to wind up getting hurt there. And what we're trying to save now, we're going to pay for it later in a lawsuit, because, I don't see how that hasn't been taken care of, because this road I go through all the time, and this road has been in that condition for the last 2 or 3 years now. And, I don't see how it hasn't been taken care of, so we really need to address that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Fajardo? Are you on?
I'm on. Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks. Really quick question. I was looking at on the slides. You had the Las Lunas project. It was the I-25 to 47 bridge project. Now I know that there's a bridge project going on now. The project that was in your slides, which project is that?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, if you would look at page 2, Laws of 2019, Chapter 271, the project that's identified there is the Las Lunas River Crossing. It is more commonly referred to as the Morris Road Interchange.
Okay.
The 55 million that's in there right now, it's local lead through the village of Las Lunas. They're currently at 30% plans. We are meeting with them bi-weekly with the staff that's there at the village offices. We're at the time of writing of this report, it was we were working on the executed agreement. $5 million should be for either right-of-way or engineering services, and $50 million is for the construction. The project, as it's scoped right now, is a diamond interchange near where the Morris Road, just north of where the prison to the west there is the area. It would be a 2-lane facility that goes through 314. It would be 4-lane over the Rio Grande, which is currently being evaluated by the environmental side for the impacts, and then a 2-lane facility that would go down to New Mexico 47, which would tie in just south of the 263 interchange El Cerro Loop.
And do you have any estimated day of breaking ground, or what does that look like?
We're looking at, we're targeting like the 2022, 2023 timeframe for breaking ground. I will say that it is still somewhat underfunded to get the full ultimate build out. And so that project's obviously something that could use additional funding for construction.
Okay, thank you. And then the project going on right now, that's you guys are building the new bridge along Main Street in Las Lunas. When's the completion of that project? When do you expect that to be completed?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, let me open, I need to take a look at it. We are progressing fairly quickly. One of the things that we need to do is once the existing bridge is tied in, or the new bridge is tied in to the roadway, we expect to be demolishing the old bridge once utilities have been relocated. So we're looking that that's going to be complete in the mid to later part of 2021.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you know, Mr. Gibson, if I haven't spoken to the mayor or the village manager on the I-25 to 47 project, that's the 55 million. And when we were working on this funding and that, we were talking to them, and they had asked for a certain amount, and they will get the rest from the feds under the, I don't know if they still call it a Tiger grant. Do you know, have you had any conversation with them on where they at with that, with the federal portion of it? Because the larger amount was supposed to be the federal portion and not the state, but the state right now is actually the larger portion. I think the project was around 75 to $80 million.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, currently we're working on finishing the 1A, 1B report. We know that the consultant, which is Molson Corbin for the town of or village of Los Lunas, they have put together a chronology of events of grants that they have applied for. They do seek those grants. I know from this grant cycle from this year, nothing had been awarded based on the draft of that report, but I do believe that they're still seeking to try to get federal participation in the forms of grants. They had met with the New Mexico delegation, with Congressional and House of Representatives delegation, and so they are actively seeking to still get parts of that funded through the federal side.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully they can succeed, because it is my understanding that the current administration, federal administration, wants to put a lot of money into projects and infrastructure, roads and all that, to create jobs and etc. The my other question is on Highway 6 from I-25 to I-40. There was I know they're working on the bridge over the tracks over there on Highway 6. There's still about 11 miles to complete that project, that whole Highway 6, and there's no shoulder on the last 11 miles. I believe that's in part of your list here. Am I correct? I can't find it now. It's on the second page up there. Bridge replacement, roadway reconstruction, signalization, lighting. Is that part of that, completing that last 11 miles?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, specifically on the ongoing projects, that is only the BNSF bridge. The project that, the 11 miles that you speak of, that would go from west of Los Lunas and tie in on the West Mesa side, we have identified that project. It is fully, it's shovel ready. We're seeking to see how good of a candidate it would be for freight corridor type of funding. And so we're always looking for opportunities to get that funded. The part that had been lagging was the final right-of-way of that area was through some Pueblo parcels, and also some of the developed areas, Tuning Ranch areas and Rockaway, I believe. But that has been since resolved, and so that project is moving forward when funding is available.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Gibson, you're referring to Highway 6? I didn't know there was reservation property. I mean, Laguna is, but that's already done. On the further east side of Highway 6, I don't believe there's reservation there.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and it could have been a mix between the two projects that we've had out there. Most of the portion that's still uncompleted for reconstruction would go past the Facebook area, past kind of to the west side. So it may not have been specifically with Pueblo lands, but there were right-of-way issues that we were resolving so that it would be fully ready to be constructed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. That would be in the San Clemente area there, and east and west of there.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, let me look up, I don't see that it's on this report. In 2 seconds, I'll be able to look it up, what the mileposts are for that particular project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Additional questions? Mr. Gibson, on the Vulcan proposed road, what is the estimated price tag on that now?
Mr. Chair, sorry, which road?
On the Vulcan Road on the west side of Albuquerque, going, I guess, from 40 on up to 25?
I think he's talking about Pescado del Volcan.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chair, I don't have an accurate estimate. That's something I can get back to you on. Right now, the processes that I've been involved in has just been the preliminary for the preservation of right-of-way, but it's something I can look into and definitely get you an answer on.
Okay, the legislature works with current information. When I first heard about the project, it was $100 million, and the last year I heard it was now the $200 to $250 million on that. And I bring that to mind to pass on to future legislative bodies that there's a lot of needs out there competing for that, the dollars around the state. The late Representative Murray Ryan often talked about the 5-year program. He said the 5-year program qualified you for the second 5-year program, that it's way down the road. I didn't ask Trent Doolittle at the time, and I'm not talking about Texas Highway's total budget, but in El Paso alone, the state of Texas spent more money than what our entire budget is for the state of New Mexico in one city on those projects right there. So I guess the message there is there's an awful lot of need and more money is going to be required on that. So as we wish for additional infrastructure, the legislature is going to have to step to the plate along with the executive to come up with a long-range plan. Otherwise, we're going to be relegated to being extremely archaic in our infrastructures. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I was able to look at that information for Senator Clemente Sanchez.
Yeah, go ahead.
The project on New Mexico 6, we're estimating it at about 17.2 million. It's just over a 9-mile project. It would be from milepost 23.6 to 32.6. If it's not funded by alternate sources, we're looking at that being constructed in the year 2023.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for District 4.
District 4, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
We can hear you.
Great.
Unless your numbers get too high and then you're going to go on mute.
Okay. Well, again, my name is James Geigels. I'm the District 4 engineer up here in District 4 in out of Las Vegas, New Mexico. We're basically responsible for the northeastern quadrant of the state of New Mexico. We're bordered by Texas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. We have 4 ports of entry, 6 rest areas, and we cover approximately 22,000 square miles. The district is also comprised of 7 counties, 20 municipalities, 16 patrols, 5 project offices, and we have 4 traveling crews. In addition, we maintain over 3,100 center lane miles. We have also maintained 595 interstate lane miles and 480 center lane miles of U.S. highway. So again, if you just kind of scroll down a little bit to the map that we have there, you can do that for me, Aaron. Thank you. Basically, we're kind of straddled. We got I-40 to the south. If you look at the south of the district from Santa Rosa on into Tucumcari up to San Juan and the Colorado, Texas border, over to the west, you can see I-25, and we basically start up in the Glorieta Road, Pecos area. We head on up towards Las Vegas, north onto Springer, and then up to Raton and the Colorado border. And from there, we got US 6487 that starts off from I guess you can see Raton, and it kind of heads on down towards Clayton to the Texas and Oklahoma border. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what our district looks like. You scroll down a little bit there, Aaron, we've got our budget, our FY21 budget, just like all the other districts. We have a total of about $36.7 million total budget. I'm not going to go through all the different areas there, but you can see how our budget breakdown is and how our district budget is set up. Again, our employee breakdown right now, we were moving pretty good until we got shut down there in regards to hiring. I know we're hiring all our maintainers, or we're moving forward on that. We're getting things filled, but we still have about an 18.7% vacancy rate, and we keep pushing to get those positions filled. Okay, page 2. Okay, on our ongoing projects, I'm not going to go through all of them. The first project there is our bridge replacement roadway reconstruction project. That's up on US 54. This bridge basically straddles the Canadian River, and it's in Logan, New Mexico, just north of Tucumcari. We've been working on that project for the last 2 years. It's a major bridge construction type project, and it's about a $22.5 million project, and we're looking to have an opening and maybe a ribbon cutting ceremony over now in October of 2020. You go down to the third project there. That's basically I-25. This is the phase 1 of the Raton Pass up there on north of Raton at the Colorado border, and we're hoping to get that project done by the end of the year. The next two projects below that are pavement rehab projects, and these are on I-40. And if you travel I-40 in District 4 between around the Santa Rosa area headed towards Newkirk and Tucumcari, we're doing a lot of work in that particular area in regards to pavement rehab and also some pavement preservation. You see a lot of work going on right now this summer, and we're trying to wrap those projects up. And these two projects are part of that. Okay, so the next project there is the road reconstruction. That's the Grand Avenue. You look over to the right there location. Grand Avenue is the project that we have right here within the city of Las Vegas. It's basically off of I-25 on the south side of the city, and it's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles long, and it's the entrance to the city of Las Vegas. We basically completed the project. We're doing a final punch list with our contractor and trying to wrap things up and get the project finalized. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the upcoming projects, and maybe a couple projects that I really want to talk about. Upcoming projects is the second project. That's a rotary reconstruction project on US 54, and that's the Tucumcari job, and that's the project that's basically phase 2 and phase 3 of the US 54 that basically ties into the I-25 interchange. Phase 1 we're getting ready to wrap up here by the end of the year, and then this is phase 2 and 3, which will kind of take us another couple miles north towards Logan, and then so we can get that project completed. Now, House Bill Section 9 designated the $250 million. House Bill 2, kind of a breakdown. That's from 2019. We had a total of $34 million. The first project is basically phase 2 and phase 3, like I talked about on US 54. We had 13 million slated for that particular project. And the next project's New Mexico 39, and I think that project we kind of pushed back a little bit, and we're looking for some bonding funding to get that done. But we are moving forward to getting the project ready to go. And this is a project that's on New Mexico 39 north of Logan, headed towards Mosquito. So we're working on that. We're probably about a 30% complete, design complete on that particular job. The next one is House Bill 2, the $89 million. This is for 2019. This is basically the 14.8 million that we got. All those projects are completed. All those projects are basically contract maintenance type projects that we did last year, and then we got them done by the end of the fiscal year this year in July. All those jobs are done. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but we basically spread that money around our district to try to do some pavement preservation, take care of some of the issues that we have on our pavements in the particular area. But all that money's been spent. The next one is the House Bill $235 million. That's the one we got for 2020. Again, the first project is that phase 2 and phase 3 of US 54. We were short when that project got bid several months ago. We were short $3.7 million. So what we did is we're going to tap into this funding and go ahead and fund the rest of that project to get that project going. We just had a pre-con today on that job, and we're coming into the winter months. There's a 3-month ramp up time for this job here. So we'll probably be starting in February, March of next year to get that job going. And then the rest of them are, well, the second project there, the control number is 4010-1310. That project is a project that was ready to go on I-25, and this project is just north of Las Vegas from Watros towards Wagon Mountain, and that project has been bid. It's been awarded, and we're going to get that project going here pretty soon. I don't think it's going to have. They're going to do all the crushing and getting all the materials ready for the overlay this winter, and then come March, April, we'll start going ahead and breaking ground on that project. And the last 4 projects are contract maintenance projects, and to go ahead and take care of that, and we'll get that done by the end of the next fiscal year, June, July. the next page 3 is our upcoming STIP projects. I'll go just through a couple of those, and some of these projects are projects I've already talked about. But again, the first project is the I-25 project. This is basically the project from Watrous North, and then if you go on down the line, we have several other projects there. New Mexico 434. This is basically from Mora up towards the canyon, up towards Angel Fire. And then the rest of the STIP 2022, 2021. This is our future projects in our STIP. I'm not going to go through each one of those. If you all have questions about those, you can ask me about them. The last table you see there is our major projects unfunded. We have quite a bit. I wanted to put 10 on there, but I only put 5. But again, the first 2 projects are projects. The first one is a project that's phase 3 of the Raton pass, and that's the one that will basically get us down towards Raton. And that project is basically almost designed, ready to go. We just need the funding to get that done. The next project is the US 6487. This is in the same area. This is when you come in down to Raton, the first interchange that you hit there goes into 6487. We have backups onto, if you're coming southbound down I-25, especially during the tourist months or during when we have a lot of traffic. Taking 6487 starts to back up on I-25. We got the funding that we got with the House Bill 2. We went ahead and started the study and the design. We got 1.5 million slated for that, and we want to get that. That's a major unfunded project we want to get going. And then on down the line, New Mexico 434. This is the last couple of phases to get us to Angel Fire from Mora, take us through the canyon. We're trying to get that project done. That project is designed. We're probably about 70-80% complete, but we need some additional funding to wrap that up. And then on the last page, this is just our equipment needs. Not equipment needs. This is basically the funding that we got, our Z monies that we got last year. These are the different areas that we have, the 40 Southern Patrols, the 50s, the Northern Patrol, 60 Central. These are the different areas that we have in maintenance and the equipment needs that we have. Okay, so there's a total of 4.2 million that was allocated to us. We went ahead and we got all the equipment ordered. We received about 70% of the equipment. Everything was going good until the COVID-19 hit, and then things kind of slowed down in getting some of this equipment. We're hoping by the end of the year we'll have all this money spent and get all this equipment out to our crews so they have better equipment to go ahead and do their jobs. And that's about all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If there's any questions from you? Oh, I do know Senator Woods had a question about we had a timber structure that washed out August 29th. I know on New Mexico 456. I know Senator Woods had some concern about that. And do you want me to update him?
Quickly.
Okay, so Senator Woods, we are working on it. Just want to let you know, the plan here is to go ahead and we have a temporary bridge here at the district in our yard. We want to go ahead and utilize that temporary bridge, have a contractor remove the existing structure, wooden structure. That structure was built in 1966, probably by our own forces, but we want to go ahead and have a contractor remove the old timber bridge, install a temporary bridge, and hopefully we can get that going in the next 3 or 4 months. So it might take some time, but I think that's the best way to go. Right now, I got a resolution for emergency declaration of emergency from Union County. I got that yesterday evening from them, so that will help us try to secure some funding to go ahead and get this project rolling. We got our design teams moving forward. We got our geotech engineer, our bridge engineer, so we got our design team going, and we're surveying the area right now with our district surveyor, so we're trying to get everything moving forward so we can get that structure, a temporary bridge built real quick.
Any additional questions, Senator Woods?
No, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the District 4 engineer, Mr. Gallegos, very much for taking care of that problem as fast as he could. It just worked out. And so you can't drop everything and do everything. But thank you for getting on it, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on to District 5, Paul Brasher.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Secretary. My name is Paul Brasher. I'm the District 5 engineer. And when they light up the presentation, I'll show you where we are. District 5 is the northwest quadrant of the state. If you scroll down just a little bit, show the map. I included a little, the shape of our district is a little irregular, so I put an inset with the location map of our district. We are 6 counties. We're San Juan County, Rio Arriba County, Taos County, Los Alamos County, Santa Fe County, and Torrance County. We're responsible for maintaining 5,375 lane miles of road. We have 10 tribal governments within our district. We work with San Ildefonso, Santa Clara, Nambe, Picaris, Tesuque, Powake, Okewenge, Taos, Jicarilla, Apache, and the Navajo Nation. Our district is about 19,000 square miles, not the largest. We have 55 miles of Interstate 40. We've got 36 miles of I-25 for a total of 91 miles. We have about 9% of the state's interstate system passing through our district right here. We have 34 state routes, 7 U.S. routes. We've got 3 rest areas. We've got a rest area at the Gorge Bridge northwest of Taos. We have a rest area on the approach to Santa Fe from Albuquerque in the northbound lane called La Bajada or Bicentennial. And we have a rest area on Interstate 40 at about milepost 207.5. This is between Moriarty and Klein's Corners. If you look at the map, though, you'll see we go from Four Corners to Klein's Corners. At the very bottom, we're under where it says Torrance County. Right over the county line is Corona, New Mexico. So that's the area that we cover. The northeast corner, it goes up to Amalia, right up to the border of Colorado. We do this all with we take care of maintenance through 22 maintenance patrols and 5 project offices. I scroll down just a little bit. I will launch you through the budget. First of all, I am the district engineer. Our commissioner is Mr. Tom Taylor. I was introducing him by way of his photograph there. We've enjoy a great cooperation with the tribal governments and the 17 local governments within the district here. The photograph you see at the bottom of this page is US 64 west of Bloomfield. Our operating budget, as it shows here, is the 23 million, almost $24 million here. $24 million. Our ongoing construction contracts, which we'll go through a little bit coming up, are about 116 million. Contract maintenance is 6 million. Field supplies at 5 million or so. We do have and you can read the rest. We do emphasize rest area maintenance. Although we have 3 rest areas, we do recognize that rest areas are the outward impression that the state of New Mexico as a whole and the Department of Transportation display to the traveling public. And so we do the best we can to keep them up, keep them maintained and modernized. And we put a lot of money into it. In terms of improvements, we've got $91,000 improvements. As you can see, for our maintenance alone is $570,000, just 3 rest areas here. And I've got a little table at the bottom showing where we spend the money on that. But our IT budget, and I didn't list it here, but I will tell you what it is. Our IT is $81,000 and our communications are $359,000 for a total of $440,000. Now, we take care of all those maintenance patrols and those construction project offices with, in support, we got 47 positions, maintenance 190. On construction side, we've got 67, and then, of course, on the engineering side, 21 positions for a total of 325. Our vacancies, 52, are running about 16%, as you can see here. If you scroll down just a little bit, let me just launch into what we have under construction right now. If you travel around much around the state or the district, you will have seen our projects at work right now. We just let a project on New Mexico 68 between 6.9 and 10.1. 68 is the route that takes you if you were going from Espanola to Taos. It's the road that goes through the canyon paralleling the river. I have this really nice photograph at the end of this presentation of that corridor right there. We just let that, we're on a winter suspension here. We'll start it pretty soon for $15.5 million a part of that funding, by the way, comes from the our laws of 2019, Chapter 271. We put $10.5 million as the state share towards that project right there. We have a roadway rehabilitation. We're winding up Taos Phase 1, which went from New Mexico 518 into La Posta here. It's basically done. It hasn't been closed out yet. Now, one of the more challenging projects that I'll bet the state of New Mexico DOT has ever launched would be the reconstruction of New Mexico 68 right through Taos. This is downtown Taos, where there are buildings up against the sidewalk. There are utilities. There's something for everybody. There's environmental, archaeological. There are small businesses. And so we are under construction in Taos. We started on that in a very, very challenging project we're up for. We don't have as much interstate as everybody else does, but the interstate is a priority for us. And so we have a project right now under construction on I-25 between 263 and 277. 263 is about the Coach D exit if you're going northbound from Albuquerque. And 277 puts you right about Cerrillo St. Francis. And within that reach, there's a La Bajada hill, very steep grade, which we'll talk about just in a second. So we have that under construction. It's going very well right now. We got repaving, and we'll finish that in a matter of a few months. We do have under construction right now a bridge on 574. Now, if you were to leave Farmington going north on 170, you're going to go into Colorado. Just a few miles before you got to Colorado, you would turn right on the 574, and about a third of a mile down the road, there was this wood timber bridge that was built decades ago, and it's been replaced with a very much needed concrete deck bridge. We are finishing that right now. And speaking of bridges, on New Mexico 96, 96 is the route that takes you. If you were driving through Cuba on 550 and you were going to go to Farmington, a little north of Cuba, you'd turn right onto New Mexico 96. And if you stayed on 96, it would take you past Abiquiu all the way over to 84. You'd pass Youngsville, you'd pass Coyote, you'd pass Cayena. Well, in that reach there, we have a bridge, New Mexico 96, that is on 96. That is a very dilapidated bridge. We're replacing with a steel girder. And we have let that project to a contractor, Chemo Constructor, as a matter of fact, to build. We have under construction in Los Alamos. We have New Mexico 502. We're building a roundabout in downtown Los Alamos. On 64, 64 is worth talking about just for a second here, because when the district launched the corridor engineering studies, probably in 2005 or so, studying the corridor of 64 between Bloomfield and Farmington, the results of this to get access under control, to get drainage, to get widening, add lanes and so forth. It went to construction starting in the Bloomfield end, working in 2-mile increments, starting about 2010. And we're finally on the last two 2-mile segments, launched as one 4-mile project. And we're going to be winding that up pretty soon, and that will conclude a widening of a successful widening project for 64 between Bloomfield and Farmington, from 4 lanes to 6 lanes with access control medians. And it's something that's going to be worth celebrating when it's done, because it was a long time coming. And we're in the last phase east of Farmington. We have a small signalization project here in Santa Fe, Alta Vista and Cerrillos. But if you look at the ongoing projects, I think you can see that they're all over they're pretty much all over the district. If on the next little table of 2, that I-25 that I mentioned a minute ago has La Bajada in it, and that $20 million would be the state share. What the La Bajada project is going to be. We're going to need probably closer to $50 million, maybe a little over $50 million. La Bajada is the slope. Just north of the Coach D exit, and we have wall barrier on the southbound lanes to keep people off the shoulder, because the shoulder was slipping away from us down the hill. Very serious failure in progress right now, and it's in design. So we've got that under control. The second one is, of course, 68 that I talked about, a piece of 68 that we just started construction on. Now, if we go to our projects, let me just describe what we have done with. We had $89 million. We had our share, our sixth of $89 million. It was later supplemented up to like $100 million. So we had a little over $16 million to deal with, and this is what we've done with it. We put it in Cerrillos in Santa Fe. District-wide, we launched the wrong way ramp warning system equipment. We are tweaking that right now. We have 2 interchanges that we put wrong way signalization on. This is I-25 at Old Pecos Trail at Santa Fe, and I-25 at the El Dorado exit. That's exit 290, just southbound from Santa Fe. And we're finalizing the installation of that. And what it does is when somebody drives up the ramp, they drive up an off ramp backwards, it sends a series of signals to them, bright flashing lights and a lot of signage that advising that they ought to go back. 599, this is the relief road around Santa Fe, and we've completed that project. We've repaved it. 60, another piece of 68, which is that road through Taos Canyon on the way to Taos. We finished that. The east intersection, we had a very badly rutted intersection, 491 and US 64. We took care of that. Now 511 and 539, these are guardrails. We're working with the Bureau of Reclamation right now that owns Navajo Dam. These would be guardrails we put on the ramp, the roadway ramp going up the face of Navajo Dam. And we've submitted a concept to Bureau of Reclamation. We just haven't gotten a confirmation back from them, but comments and a little back and forth we're lacking with them before we launch that. And then, of course, we've got money to study McCurdy Road on the east side of Espanola. It's a very difficult project. It has no sidewalks, no drainage. It's got utilities. It's got right-of-way issues and all that, but we're studying it. And then there is a Riverside Drive study at New Mexico 68. Riverside Drive is the main street through Espanola. It is New Mexico 68, and that's its name. Now we have, moving down to our $20 million. This is what we've done with our $20 million. I am pleased to say that, if you look at the top of the list, we have 285. We have our piece of 285. We have US 60. And we have Murray Drive in Farmington, and we got New Mexico 14. Those are all under construction right now. In fact, Murray Drive in Farmington is done. We just need to stripe it. 550, we're probably going to get next spring when we get some temperate weather back. Now, the next one's showing 537 aren't bridge replacements. They're pavement rehab. They show twice because we're going to have one contractor do one piece of it, another contractor do another piece, 537. 537 is the route that takes you from, if you were on 550 and you left Cuba and you were going to go to Farmington, about halfway along the ways, a third along the ways, you would turn right and go up 537. If you kept going another 55 miles or so, it would take you close to Dulce and the Colorado border. So 537 is a north-south route. It's where the Apache Nugget Casino is and heads north. We took down 12 miles of that. We fixed 12 miles of that about 5 years ago or so, and we're going to take down a large piece of the rest. Is very important to the Hickory's. And then 502 at the very bottom here, we are going to start in the spring on that, and this is the route just down the hill from Los Alamos. Now, if you look at the rest areas right here, I mentioned we had 3 rest areas, right? And this is what we've done. We've done restroom remodeling, some landscaping, a little parking lot maintenance. These rest areas, as you can imagine, are kind of they're difficult to maintain. We put a lot of money into it. We have contract maintenance, and they take care of the building and the grounds and the maintenance of the restrooms and so forth. And those restrooms take a lot of abuse from people passing through who don't appreciate all that we put into them. But they are a priority for us, and we had the opportunity to spend $300,000, and I think we're just a few dollars short of spending all $300,000 on all those rest areas, trying to spruce them up. If you continue on to the next page, these are the projects we're working on. Now, I show 11 projects right here, but if you look at the top line, it says for letting before October 1st, 2021. So these are just the projects that we're working on right now in the planning and development stage that we will let by 2021. But I should let you know that beyond that, there are another 22 projects that we are working on also. So we're working on these 11. and they're 22. And let me highlight Interstate 40. Interstate 40 between milepost 218 and 233. 218 is a little bit west of Clines Corners, and 233 is a pretty good ways east of Clines Corners because the county line is at, I think, 239 or so. It's interstate, and it's in rough condition, but we're in design of that right now, and we will launch the construction pretty soon. We have more New Mexico 68 from New Mexico 74. This is just north of Espanola, going north through Alcalde onto Velarde. And we've got New Mexico 30, which is the route that takes you from, say, 502 going to Los Alamos. It takes you into Espanola. We've got bridge preventive maintenance all over the place. We got a New Mexico 50 is southeast of Santa Fe. 371 is south of Farmington. 84, the 84 on-ramp is the ramp if you were coming from Espanola into Santa Fe. It's the ramp you would take to get onto off 599 actually onto 84. New Mexico 173 is the route that leads east out of Aztec. If you went north on 550, you take it to Colorado. From Aztec, if you went east, you take 173. We got a project there. New Mexico 14, Cerrillos Road in Santa Fe. That is a study of the intersection of 2nd and Cerrillos, which will eventually be folded into the reconstruction of Cerrillos between St. Michael's and St. Francis. And New Mexico 344 is the route that takes you north right out of Moriarty. And there's a bridge replacement that we have under construction. So again, I show 11 projects. There are 22 more beyond that I'm not showing. Future from that. And those total 116 that we have going on right now. Now, if you scroll down just a little bit, let me show you our equipment needs. I lined out, and most of these are district-wide. I should say that one of our most active involved maintenance activities is plowing snow. I think our record is 558,000 pass miles, and I've gotten in the habit of telling people that's distance to the moon and back, and then 3 times around the earth. I mean, that's a lot of miles. What that means, that's a lot of wear and tear. That's 558,000 miles on all this equipment, and it is a lot of fuel because it's not far to empty on a 10-yard tandem. And so you wear this stuff out really quickly, but at the same time, we're paying attention to heavy equipment, and we can't let up on the vehicles because we have some trucks out there that our maintenance people need, our construction crews, our construction staff need, that have well over 200,000 miles on them. And so this is a summary of the equipment. It's maintenance. It's for the construction side, but it's also maintenance. You know, compressors, the wood chipper, and these are really important to us. The snow blower. You know, we can you can plow snow off to the side only so far, only so much till it piles up. You can't pile it. You can't stack it any higher. What we really do is just blow it over the top. And we've had a couple of blowers, or 1988, 1992 vintage, that are so old, parts are beyond finding anywhere in the world, where we actually have to have somebody actually manufacture the parts that we need to keep these things together to keep it going. So we desperately are in need of a snow blowing capability so that we can keep all the routes open, especially 64 west of between Tres Piedras and Tierra Maria. Keeping those open. So this is the kind of equipment we need. And we just identified a little over almost $9 million worth that we could use really quickly. You scroll down just a little bit. Let me just highlight, I've got underfunded projects and unfunded projects. Underfunded projects are projects that we have started. We do have some money for, but we could use more. But a critic, I see. 64.
We're getting feedback.
Somebody's running their motorcycle here in the background. Here, US 64.
Thought maybe you had tilted.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Okay. Our highest priority project. Who's doing that, Adrian? Our highest priority project runs from Shiprock to the Arizona state line, and our estimated total need is around $50 to $60 million. We're short. We're well short.
Paul, this is Mike. Why don't you just stand for questions? That way we can get through that noise. I think you can stand for questions. Yeah.
I'd be delighted.
Okay.
I'd be delighted to answer any questions you have.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be very brief. I just have two things. First of all, thank you for the presentation to all of you, all six engineers. And Mr. Brasher, I just want to follow up a little bit on when you mentioned probably one of the toughest projects that has ever been done is that one going right through Taos. And, it might be that, it's happening now, but actually that has been probably like for 30 years, but what I want to mention, Mr. Chairman, that to me was very important is the lady that moderated for that meeting on the public hearing, and you were present there that night, and I apologize for not remembering and recalling her name. I have been to many meetings in my time, but I have never seen anyone like her handle a crowd. She was just excellent, and I hope that the department has plans on keeping her for many years, and because she was just a real professional in the way she could handle the questions and the crowd and, how to work with that. So, I wanted to let you know on that. The other part is the question that I have is, and I think you answered it, but I'm just wanting to follow up a little bit, is on that project between Española to Alcalde. That will be that entire stretch. And the reason that I'm asking is because it's under construction right now, and then it says end of project or end of construction, and there's like two miles left. So that is my question.
Mr. Chair, Secretary, Senator, a very good question here. The project that we launched is the middle piece of the total corridor construction we're going to be doing. We're going to be going from milepost 4 to about milepost 12 or so, and this is just it's just a middle piece that's under construction. We came into some redistribution funding for the other two pieces. The piece south of it and the piece north of it are designed and ready to go. We're just awaiting funding. Well, with the redistribution funding of about $33 million or so, we've assigned it to New Mexico 68. And so what we're going to do is we have let this one, and what I want to do is let the other two as one project, the other two pieces as one project. So we would have two contractors working in that area, not three, potentially. And so it's another $33 million worth of work. So this is all coming up right away. So all we're under contract for is the middle section right now, but the portion south and the portion north will be under construction soon.
Oh, very well. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, this just demonstrates again, all the work that's being done, considering, our revenue and considering how much we have to work with. But there is definitely a lot of activity statewide, and thanks again.
Additional questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I think we're ready to move on to District 6.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Larry Maynard. I'm the District 6 engineer. Before I start, Trent Doolittle from District 1 asked me to share his IT budget with you. It's $363,600. Moving on, from our map here, you can see that District 6 includes all of McKinley, Cibola County, a large portion of Catron and Sandoval County, and a small portion of San Juan, Rio Arriba, Valencia, and Socorro County. Our IT budget in District 6 is $251,300, and the rest of our budget is there for your viewing pleasure. Moving on, though, to page 2,
of the presentation. At the very top, we have some ongoing construction projects. Now, these are mostly just the federally funded projects. I left the state funded projects down below this. So the federally funded projects, you can see of the 13 projects there, about 1/2 of them are on I-40. I-40 is our big spender. A lot of our work is done on I-40. We have 528 lane miles of I-40. That's 132 miles. And a good portion of our budget is always spent trying to hold those lanes together and keep those trucks moving, keep the traffic moving and the tourists moving in New Mexico. So the first project, I-40, that you see, that's the big refinery project that caused a lot of problems last year. From mile marker 37 to 42, that section of roadway was completely falling apart, and we had to continually put it off and just do repair work because it's a $47 million repair to reconstruct that and add climbing lanes. We have it funded now completely in 3 phases. Phase 1 is complete. That's that first project you see there. And just going down through there, I won't go through every single project. I'd like to expedite things, but you'll notice that on I-40, we're also doing a very lengthy guardrail upgrade project. All of the guardrail is currently out of specifications, and we're moving it into specification to make it more crash worthy. And our guardrail and I-40 sees its share of crashes. So this is a much needed project, and over the next year, we should be able to complete the entire 132 miles in our district. Moving on to the House Bill 2 2019 funding that you'll see below those 4 projects. The Allison corridor, the Carbon Coal Road intersection with US 491, that project is 90% designed, and it's a $23 million project. We plan on letting that the first of the year and beginning work in March, and we'll be completing that project in September of 2022. The Allison corridor, we're still in negotiations on the design for that project. The I-40 mile marker 111 to 116, that is a $28 million project, and we now have it fully funded, and we plan on starting that project in March as well of 2021. The New Mexico 4 bypass is going to be designed very, very shortly, probably in 2021. Moving on to the 2019, we have $14.8 million out of that $89 million we received. We've spent all of that, with the exception of that US 491 project, 62 to 67. That project will begin in March as well of 2021. Moving down, that money is completely spent on 2019 general fund, the 7.3 million, and that was on the refinery project of phase 1. Moving down, the construction of the new parking lot for the Manuelito rest area is 100% complete, and that money is spent as well. We received in 2020 a total of $20 million, and we plan on spending this $20 million by July of 2021. So these projects are dire needs within our district. You'll notice that the Manuelito rest area, we lost the septic system there. Prairie dogs came in and invaded and dug it up for us, and it contaminated the soil, so we have to dig it up and replace that septic system. And we're very fortunate to have this $1 million to do that. Another project to note on there is a rockfall slope mitigation on New Mexico 118 near the Arizona border. We have huge trailer-sized rocks that fell on the road and a lot more that are hanging on the cliffs. And this $1 million will help us to drag those slopes and remove those boulders from that section of New Mexico 118. And I won't go over all the projects, but moving on to the next page, page 3. Those projects that are there, that's about 5 years of projects that we have in design. The most reliable are those in 2020. I'll go over a couple of those. New Mexico 118 near the Fire Rock Casino. We're going to be doing some much needed improvements to the shoulders and add XL and decel lanes, do some wing wall improvements to a section, some intersecting roads there, and moving down on the Swanee Bridge is the only access to Highland Meadows off of New Mexico 6 on Old 66. The bridge over Burlington Northern. It's a historical timber bridge, and we're going to have that bridge designed in 2020, and we'll be seeking funding sometime in the future to replace that bridge. The majority of these other projects are already in design and for future years. So I won't go over all the future year projects, but I will answer questions if called upon. You can see our unfunded needs. It's a long list, and there's some high dollars there. The one thing that I will touch on is the I-40, where I have the several mile markers, 7.5, 9.7, 14.5 to 22.3, on and on and on. Several locations there need a cable barrier, and several places, 93 miles of I-40 need to be reconstructed. And we also need to add concrete wall barrier in the median in several locations. We need climbing lanes in several locations, additional third lane, and that's 187 million. We don't fully expect to get that money anytime soon, but we're tracking it very carefully just to make sure that if money becomes available, we'll know the mile markers where that money needs to be spent. And our equipment needs, these are just the quick and urgent needs, and tracking our equipment. About 42% of our equipment is eligible to be replaced based on the 3 criteria, and we plan on updating our equipment as the funding comes available so that our hardworking employees out in the field will have the best equipment available to them to do their jobs. And with that, I'll stand for questions. I know I was quick, but wanted to get this moving. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Woods. Senator Woods, are you on? Do we have additional questions from other committee members? Senator Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but Larry, we've had quite a few accidents and fatalities on I-40, and then there's a lot of construction going on, putting the guardrails in. My question to you, Larry, is when they are not working on putting those rails in, like one weekend there was a semi-truck wrecked, I believe it was west of 66 Casino in Rio Puerco, and it was shut down, and I was told it was shut down, so I came down Highway 6, Las Unas Highway 6, and got onto I-40 right there at Highway 6 and I-40, and from there to just east of Dancing Eagle Casino, not very many miles, a few miles, but not that much. It took me almost an hour and a half to get through there because the traffic was slow. There was no wreck or anything anymore because we were past that. But those barrels stay out all weekend long, or all the time. They never remove them when there's no construction going on can you tell me why that happens? And that really slows down the traffic, and I would think they would. I think I remember in the past when there wasn't any construction going on over the weekend, or they'd remove those barrels, but they didn't, and they just backed it up for whatever that distance is, maybe 15 miles or so, for an hour and a half. An hour and a half. So is there a reason why they don't remove those barrels when they're not working on the weekends or at night in those areas?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator Sanchez, that's a very good question. The answer to the question is the barrels are there because they've removed all of the safety barriers for that full length where the barrels are located. And therefore, we have to keep that lane where the guardrail has been removed. We have to keep that lane closed for the safety of the public. I know and normally that would be fine under normal conditions, but there was a big crash out there farther east, and it backed up traffic. And then when they started letting all that traffic through all at once, there was only one lane to accommodate them in our district. And unfortunately, the barrels had to be remain in place because the guardrail was all removed for that full length.
Okay, thank you, Larry. So it's a safety issue. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Larry.
Representative Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, sir. I noticed on your projects in the engineering and development stage, you have US 60 for milepost 18 to 24. And on your unfunded project needs, you have US 60 for mileposts 0 to 8. Can you tell me, sir, where's that located in your district?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, mile marker 0 to 8 on US 60 is located at the Arizona border for 8 miles east into New Mexico.
Okay, and then is the gap in between those two projects from 18 to 24 and from 0 to 8, there's a 10-mile gap. Is that road already been reconstructed or repaved, or is it on a future list?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that 10-mile gap from mile marker 8 to mile marker 18 isn't as in dire need as mile marker 18 to 24. That section of roadway is pretty raveled, a lot of cracks, a lot of potholes, edge raveling. So that's where the next available project needs to be focused on. I'm not quite sure of the condition from 8 to 18, but it's not as bad as from 18 to 24. Best answer I can give you.
And thank you, Mr. Maynard. I appreciate your response. I was just curious where that piece of road was located. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Woods, are you on? Any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman, I can respond to Representative Harry Garcia's questions that he had earlier, if you'd like.
Okay, quickly.
The New Mexico 118 flooding that he talked about from mile marker 27 to 38, a study has been conducted in 2019. It's an $18.5 million worth of needs. Most of the flooding derives from outside of our right-of-way on tribal lands, but we're developing the first phase of that project for $2.5 million. It's out in a future planning year of 2025. And we'll continue to design projects as funding becomes available. On New Mexico 53, he was talking about why the 85.6 mile marker, because that's not on New Mexico 53. That's not on I-40. The New Mexico 53 is the mile marker, 85.6. I-40, it goes over I-40 at mile marker 82. Just a coincidence that those mile markers are so close to each other, where New Mexico 53 goes over I-40, and the bridge is going to be rehabilitated and some repairs done. It got struck by a semi a couple of years ago and has some cracking and bending. We're going to straighten it out.
Okay. Before we go to public comment, if we can hold somebody on from Department of Transportation in case there's any questions from the public. Do we know? There's no questions? They either couldn't get on, they were very happy with the response, or they don't care from that standpoint. So we're in 3 categories there. So that concludes, and we'd like to thank the department for their presentation today on that, and look forward to working with you. If we will have Peter make certain you email for the next meeting, and if you have any additional suggestions on the agenda that we can address on the agenda, then we will entertain possibly putting some of those, that request on. Peter, do you have anything else? Huh? Okay. And we have copies of the proposed work plan if you want to come up here and get them. I'm not going to deliver them.
I'll deliver.
On that. Is there anything else? That concludes. Be careful going home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.